Profound ignorance, propaganda, or just wishful thinking? The propaganda campaign has begun. It's in earnest now, folks. The efforts by legacy media in South Africa to put lipstick on a pig with the appointment of Roelf Meyer as ambassador to the United States. Now, I'm not here arguing that it's a bad pick. It's one I disagree with, but I understand why Ramaphosa did it. He's a known, and what better to have in DC than someone that you don't have to worry about having political ambitions, and someone who is at the end of whatever career they may have had, and someone who is unlikely to step on the crank. So it makes sense, particularly in light of the race hustling committed by Ibrahim Rasool. 13 months later, we have an ambassador. But News24, pretending to be a legitimate news organization to run news stories, runs a puff piece opinion disguised as news, talking about an analysis and comments from different analysts around South Africa and the US about what a great pick this is, and completely missing the point here. Let me read some of the quotes from this story. So News24, Roelf Meyer will disrupt right-wing messaging in Washington. Right-wing messaging in Washington. What are we talking about? Well, what they're talking about is the organizations they're terrified of. The organizations that they call right-wing in an effort to discredit them. Of course, AfriForum and Solidarity. Funny how in the 21st century, people who stand up for equal treatment under the law, people who stand up for equal rights, people who stand up for all races being treated the same are considered to be right-wing. I thought that was a liberal ideology. Isn't that what drove towards the end of apartheid, was liberal politics? So how are people who believe in the same fundamental rights now right-wing? Because the leftists are in charge and they frame the narrative. It's not right-wing. These are liberal ideologies. They may be expressed by conservatives because the left has lost its mind. So let's delve into this article a little bit here. Presidential envoy Alistair Reuters said that Roelf's appointment will help enormously. It undercuts the right-wing grouping's claims that they speak for Afrikaners. There was a void in Washington. Yeah, one created by your government, sending an idiot to be the ambassador. The right was the one engaging with the State Department. Yes, because no one in South Africa's government was interested in engaging with the United States. We've opened the conversation now, and having Roelf as an ambassador who already knows Washington will fill the void. Yeah, it will fill the void, but the real work of the relationship will take place in Hatfield and at Durko, not in Washington, D.C. Now, Reuters said, we are working hard to get the executive order lifted. It prevents organizations and government departments from having contact with the South African government. This is a big challenge. It makes officials reticent. They don't want to be seen as doing something wrong. Well, perhaps he needs to read the executive order. First off, you're not going to be able to remove the executive order. President Trump is the person you have to convince. You don't have to convince Congress. You don't have to convince the House, the Senate, the State Department. The only person you have to convince is President Trump. It's his executive order, hence the term executive order. It's not going anywhere. So you can hope and pray, and you can crap in one hand and pray in the other hand and see which hand gets filled first. So that just is going to happen. And as far as the executive order preventing people from engaging with South Africa, did you read the executive order? Where in the executive order does it explicitly state that U.S. government officials cannot talk to South African interlocutors? That's utter nonsense. Our embassy in Hatfield talks to government agencies in South Africa all the time, advancing our interests and listening to your concerns. But there's no effort here in Washington. And Roelf Meyer coming here may change that, maybe with the yardstick, but that's not going to change the executive order. Roelf Meyer is not going to be able to get rid of that executive order. It just isn't going to happen. South Africa has not changed its policy. It still has 145 race-based laws that are immoral and illegal under its own constitution. Now, they talked to Phil van Niekerk, and he claims that Washington is changing and that Trump's influence is waning as he's lost support and he's been damaged by the war politically. Okay, let's pretend that's true. Doesn't matter how much support President Trump has in the District of Columbia, in any institution, any think tank, in Congress. It doesn't matter. Congress doesn't issue executive orders. Think tanks don't issue policy. They may influence, but they don't issue it. You are not going to change policy by bringing Roelf Meyer here. You're going to have to convince him that you're taking steps Trump that is, you're taking steps to correct the deficiencies in Washington's eyes that South Africa is engaged in. And that's not going to happen. So you can pretend all you want that Trump has become weaker because of Iran. It has no bearing on the executive order, none whatsoever. Now, if Trump was pushing a law in Congress, like, for instance, Senator Kennedy's bill to investigate and sanction ANC leaders, or Ronnie Jackson's bill in the House, if Trump was championing those pieces of legislation and they were in discussion and about to go on the floor of the House and Senate, you could make the argument that Trump's influence is waning and those bills wouldn't get passed in either the House or the Senate and make it to the president's desk for signature. Now, that's a legitimate argument, and that's an argument from someone that understands civics, one that understands our system of government, not these idiots running their mouths talking about Trump's influence is waning. That's utter nonsense. That's wishful thinking. This is uninformed South Africans who know nothing about our political system. And a newspaper that pretends to be a legitimate organization reporting news when it's reporting propaganda. Propaganda. Executive orders are not influenced by policy, not influenced by the popularity of a president. Is it going to change? Silly nonsense. Propaganda. Now, Tony Carroll at the Carnegie claims that Meyer is well-known, respected in D.C. That may very well be true, but there's a reason why he may be well-known, respected in D.C. Because he comes from a different era in which leftists held sway. And many people in the bureaucracy remain to be politically left of center. So he may hold sway and influence with those people, and they may try to influence Trump, but I seriously doubt that they're going to influence Trump and change Trump's view on what's happening in South Africa. If South Africa wants to improve the relation, it's a very simple task. There's some easy wins here. It doesn't even cost money. It doesn't even cost you your principles. The ANC has already said that they don't sing the Kill the Boer song because the liberation era is over. Since you don't sing it, why don't you disavow it and say that it's hate speech and call for people to stop singing it? That's such an easy win. South Africans can ignore you, ANC. Just do it. But you're cowardly. And secretly, you have racists in your ranks who want to kill all the white farmers and all the whites. And that's why you won't do it, because you're afraid of losing the sport. But that's an easy win. Here's another easy win. Admit that you have 145 race-based laws and stop pretending that it's okay to discriminate against people based on events that happened decades ago. The majority of South Africa's population was born after apartheid ended. They had nothing to do with it. Punishing people for the actions of people in past centuries or past decades is not only immoral, it's twisted, bizarre, and sick. It is simply apartheid in a different jacket. That's all it is. Instead of the National Party's coat and tie, you're wearing the ANC's coat and tie, the Mandela shirt. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. Limiting the number of white males who can serve in middle and senior management in private corporations to 4%. Why? How does that help anybody? Why don't you invest in the schools where pedos prey on 11 and 12-year-old girls to get sex with them, impregnate them, infect them with HIV in order for those girls to get passing grades in school? Why don't you focus on that? Why don't you focus on the pit latrines that still remain in over 100 schools in South Africa? Why don't you focus on delivering electricity? Why don't you focus on real education instead of the fake Africa-centric curriculum you're coming up with, ignoring Steve Biko and denying the history of South Africa? Where do the wheels come from in Africa? Where did the software come from? Where did the vaccines come from? Where did the automobiles come? Did the Xhosa invent the internal combustion engine? Did the Zulu invent space travel? No, they didn't. That doesn't mean they couldn't have done it, but they didn't. And pretending that they did is just stupid. You will create generations of bigots, racist, and uninformed citizens. And that's not what a polity needs. This is propaganda from News24. This is an effort to promote Roelf Meyer as an acceptable candidate in Washington. Washington will accept his credentials and he will become the ambassador here. There's no justification for not accepting him. And I have no problem with that. But he will be inconsequential and have no impact, except in the Tea Party caucuses of leftists who hate Trump, who gather in little institutions like the Brookings Institution. That's the only influence he'll have. Trump's executive order will not be affected by his waning popularity in Iran, which isn't true. These people have no idea what they're talking about. They don't understand American politics. They don't understand geopolitics. And it's distressing to see that they get paid. They have a salary for spewing nonsense. What say you, South Africa? Mzansi? Cheers.